Please consider supporting Black Women United YEG for the protection and advancement of black women and girls in Alberta. You can learn more about them at bwunited.ca. They are always looking for donations and volunteers. So please, again, support Black Women United YEG for the protection and advancement of black women and girls in Alberta. Again, that website is bwunited.ca.
Hi, I'm Jed Bodwin, and I live in Wichita, Kansas. I am a Patreon supporter for Creative Control. I discovered Creative Control some years ago, I think maybe while looking for interviews with Tommy Stinson of The Replacements. And I stumbled across this conversation that Vish had with Tommy Stinson that was really insightful. Vish held his own. I think Tommy can be a little bit of a difficult interview at times. And it went really well, and it really got into some areas that I wasn't expecting. And I thought, gosh, I have to listen to more of this guy and his podcast. Yeah, sometimes I'm not necessarily a fan of the music or musicians that Vish will have on the show, but I always appreciate their creative process a little bit more. And more times than not, though, it does lead me to finding a new musical artist that I'm interested in, or to think a little bit differently about maybe some artists whose work I've overlooked. So, go ahead, and if you've been waiting at all to support Vish and Creative Control, now is probably the best time to do it. I know as a public radio employee here in Kansas, listener-supported broadcasting, whether it's podcasts or radio itself, really isn't a thing of the past. It's actually very much a thing of both the present and the future. So, yay Vish, yay Creative Control.
To make your flexible monthly donation to Creative Control, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control today.
Brian and Michael D'Addario are very talented multi-instrumentalists, vocalists, producers, and songwriters based in New York City. Originally from Long Island, the brothers were immersed in music and theater from an early age, as their father Ronnie is a musician and songwriter in his own right. Their mother Susan once pursued acting, and so their sons now each have extensive acting credits, including stints on Broadway and on television shows. Heavily immersed in the work of the Liverpool, England band The Beatles, who were primarily active throughout the 1960s, the D'Addario brothers formed a band of their own called the Lemon Twigs in 2014 when they were in high school, and they've released 5 acclaimed albums over the past 10 years. Their latest is a stellar and dynamic pop affair called A Dream Is All We Know. It was released by Captured Tracks on May 3rd, 2024, and it prompted Brian and Michael to chat with me about things like birthday presents and the Lovin Spoonful, who they think their core audience might consist of, influences like the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and something the boys call Mersey Beach, ambitious instrumentation, and time-consuming mixing. Contemporary bands, or more contemporary bands, like Sloan and Royal Trux, their respective songwriting modes as collaborators, working with the likes of Ono Lennon, Foxygen, Weyes Blood, and Tim Heidecker, among others, touring again, other future plans, and much more. A part of the Entertainment One network with the support of listeners like you who follow and subscribe to this listener-supported and donor-driven podcast. Spread the word about it, leave nice reviews and ratings on your podcast platform of choice, and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/Creative Control, which is the primary and most reliable way for podcasters like me to make a living. Indeed, it is my primary source of income these days. Any donation amount is obviously welcome, and I'm grateful for them. However, I should let you know that a $6 a month subscription means you can access every single episode of this show in its entirety, which is not the case without that subscription. Indeed, in the case of this particular episode, those in the primary podcast feeds in the world will only be receiving an excerpt. To hear the entire episode, again, you have to be a subscriber at the Patreon. And thank you. If you are able to do this, if you have the means and inclination, it is greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoy hearing every episode, never missing a single episode of Creative Control. With additional support from Blackbird Music, a wonderful record store with bricks and mortar locations in Edmonton and Calgary, Alberta, and a website you can go to order records shipped directly to your house if you can't make it into those Alberta stores. That website is blackbird.ca, and if you wanted to order yourself a copy of A Dream Is All We Know by the Lemon Twigs, that is one way you could do it at blackbird.ca. So please consider doing so if you like what you hear on this episode, or if you know the band. Plus, in-kind support from independent businesses like Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Ontario, and Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario. This is episode 870 of Creative Control, featuring the lovely and talented Daddario brothers, Michael and Brian Daddario, from the Lemon Twigs, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Please enjoy this excerpt from our conversation, and to hear the whole thing, again, subscribe to the show at patreon.com/creativecontrol. Were you guys competitive as children with each other growing up? For whatever, for a toy, for your parents' affection, these kinds of things? Were you competitive at all there, Brian?
Yeah, we were a little competitive. I mean, there were times when, initially Michael played drums and I played guitar, and those were our roles that we had assigned for ourselves. And I wanted to branch out and play drums. I think that was actually my first instrument, but I wasn't allowed to play drums because he was the drummer. My mom would get mad, if I played in public or something, if our dad had a gig and I wanted to get on the drums, and Michael would get very upset about that if I played drums in front of other people.
Well, I don't think Mom would get mad at you. I think Mom would feel bad for me and guilt you into not doing that. I wouldn't put it like she wouldn't let me play the drums.
No.
I wasn't allowed to play the drums. You play drums all day.
I'm not at my most articulate this morning, but
no, it's you're doing well. I think you're doing fine. I'm not. Don't sell yourself short. Wait a minute. Which one's older again? Which one of you is older?
I'm 2 years older.
There you go. So the mother bear, Mama Bear, sees the older cub getting too much attention. Tries to enhance the experience for the younger cub. That's what's going on.
Well, she could see that I couldn't do anything except for that.
Oh,
yeah.
And Brian could do everything.
Once Michael started playing guitar and piano and stuff, all of that went away. But that was the nature of the competitiveness. I don't think I also wanted Michael to work with me on my songs. Because I felt like, they're my songs, I want to do everything myself, And so it was kind of like, not playing to the strengths that we both have, which is working together,
Yeah.
But eventually I just had to get over that.
So it's working well now. Michael, you'd agree. Everything's fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. I don't know why he's being such a baby, like little, sensitive little baby. I think he should get off this call and he should come and see me in the East Village face to face.
Listen, there's no reason to throw hands over this. He's being a baby because it's his birthday and that's how he came into this world. That's how you come in. It's just he's regressing. Historically in songwriting partnerships, sometimes idiosyncrasies occur between the two songwriters. For example, and famously, you might have one songwriter who's quite sardonic, snarky, cynical, while the other upbeat, totally positive. Yeah. I wonder if you feel like you guys have, complementary, but with just a little bit of tension, different songwriting approaches. Let's go to Michael.
I wonder what team that reminds me of it.
I'm just saying, there's just historically these things happen. We don't have to name any particular band from
witty and sardonic.
I'm not saying a band from Liverpool has these attributes, but I'm just saying it's possible.
One has light brown hair, the other might have dark brown hair.
One might have terrible eyesight. Who's to say? My point is, I wonder if you feel Like, you have any kind of dynamic in that vein, if it's all complementary, if one of you is more likely to write a sunny, happy song and the other one's like, everything sucks. So, Michael, can you...
I definitely don't have very good eyesight.
Oh, okay.
To answer your question.
Okay.
We switch roles in that regard often. You know, Michael's been writing a lot of sunshine pop lately, and this album will attest to that.
Yes.
So, it really depends. I think that used to be the case, you know. Around the time of our third record, Michael was definitely writing more of the dark stuff, and I was writing more happy stuff.
But I think there's stylistically, there's that separation, like with my stuff and with Brian's stuff, where my stuff tends to be plodding away and kind of, you know, a little more boneheaded, just because I'm not as
you're a bonehead,
right? Because I'm not as proficient as Brian, and at the instruments end, maybe my melodic sensibility is a little more straightforward and a little less kind of flowery, and you know what I mean, like all like flowery and ornate and unnecessary notes, and you have to remember stuff that you can't understand the first time you hear it. You have to hear it a bunch of times because you can't remember it, because the melody is so overcomplicated, and the melody becomes, eventually you start to think, do I like this?
I don't.
No.
Okay, I think I get it. I think I get what's going on here.
And mine's more like, oh, that's clever, and it's straightforward. I like it and understand it. So there's different strokes for different folks.
Well, I mean, again, in some famous examples, someone will, a band will convene in a studio, and one of the people brings in a song, and yes, everyone agrees, this is going to work. This is a good idea. However, at least one member might leave the proceeding and think, God damn it, I got to top that. Do you have that level of sort of creative competition going on? By the way, I'm not here to stir up trouble. I'm not here to cause problems and create friction. I'm just trying to get at how you guys work together. Brian, do you know what I'm getting at there? Where like you want to kind of, it gets your competitive juices going as a composer when you hear like a really great idea that your brother brings in or somebody brings into the proceedings?
I think honestly we feel ownership over each other's songs because we spend so much time together, and we're so involved in the process of the other person's songs that it really doesn't end up feeling like this is my song, this is your song.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that moment like when Michael will show me something that he's just written on guitar or something, and in that moment I might think, wow, that's good. I'd like to write something good like that.
Right.
In that style, we certainly write things in the style of it. Like if Brian has a type of song that he's written, I'll try to write a song in that style, and vice versa.
Oh, I see.
I've done that too.
You mean you're thinking of the cohesion of the album you might be making?
Yeah. So he kind of has his version of a song that happened earlier on the album. And that way I don't have to write two of them or something. You know what I mean? But it ties us together and stuff.
I think one of the things that stood out for people about the last record in particular was that it was quite dynamic. Like it seemed to have... Would you agree with that? Like it seemed to have like it had a folk element, it had a pop rock element. This one, to me, the new one, seems a little more supercharged as I dig through A Dream Is All We Know. Like there's some dynamics, of course, but everything seems very full. So... Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is albums can mean so many things to people these days, but you guys seem to... What you're saying, I think, is you're thinking, when you're writing together a batch of songs, you're thinking about how they're going to flow together. Is that right, Brian? I mean, everyone does this, but you seem to be really concentrating on that based on riffing off each other's ideas. Is that...
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the feeling of this new album really derives from how we felt towards the end of the last album. Because we went right into recording the songs for the new album after we finished Everything Harmony. And towards the end of Everything Harmony, we started to feel like man, this is like, I hope this isn't too much of a downer. You know, there are a ton of slow songs, and we really had this feeling of wanting to make a concise, energetic, fun album because we had those songs. So it's our albums are really compilations, you know. So it's just all of our songs bleed into each other, you know.
Hey, thanks for listening to Creative Control, as always. As you may have heard me mention, I recently lost my day job, and I've had a few conversations with people since who've said, you had a day job? I thought your podcast was your day job. When I explained why it hasn't been my day job to a friend, he suggested I should share some of this information with people like you listening right now. So, in short, unless they have some giant exclusive $1 million contract, podcasters are not paid to make stuff by companies like Apple and Spotify. Podcasters do not make any money from streaming royalties. Ad revenue is dependent on a certain threshold of downloads each month, and even if your show is accessed 30,000 times a month, the income you get is actually really minimal. So podcasters like me usually make time in our lives to support our communities and our interests to make these shows, and our most reliable source of income for this work is in fact crowdfunding. In my case, it's my Patreon. So if you'd like to receive ad-free episodes earlier than everyone else, regular newsletters and blog posts, bonus audio content, and support my work, quite literally, please visit patreon.com/creativecontrol today. Thank you so much for listening to this excerpt from a recent episode of Creative Control with Vish Khanna. Every other Creative Control episode is only accessible to Patreon supporters. This is one of them. So please visit patreon.com/creativecontrol and become a subscriber today, and you won't miss a single episode in its entirety. There are links in the show notes to take you right there. So if you're able to, please do support this show and enjoy hours and hours of content. Thank you.